Vampires, those mysterious, bloodthirsty creatures that haunt the night, have captured our imaginations for centuries. Known for their fangs and undead nature, they are said to feed on the lifeblood of the living, preying on their victims in the darkness. Though often seen as mythical beings from folklore and fiction, particularly in European legends, there are tales of real-life vampires who once walked the earth. Today, we will cover 3 real stories of vampires who once roamed the earth and terrorized the people with their presence and thirst for blood. Thank you for watching Craving Fear. We need your support to continue delivering stories and improve. If you haven't yet, like this video and subscribe for more content. Long ago, in the dark and misty lands of 17th century Hungary, there lived a powerful and wealthy noblewoman named Countess Elizabeth Bathory. She ruled over her grand castle, Kachtice, perched on a hill in what is now western Slovakia. The Countess was not only rich and influential, but also extremely intelligent. She knew how to read, write, and speak several languages, something rare for women of her time. But there was something strange about Countess Bathory. The Countess was 44 when her husband died, leaving her to manage the castle and land on her own. At a time when few women ruled, she stood strong. But it was after her husband's death that the whispers began to grow louder. It started with the disappearance of young servant girls. At first, no one paid much attention, as these girls were often poor and without families. But when noble girls, daughters of other wealthy families, began to vanish after visiting the Countess to learn manners and etiquette, fear spread like wildfire. The girls' parents sent their daughters to the castle, believing they would learn to be proper ladies, but many never returned. The villagers were terrified. They spoke of how the Countess had become obsessed with staying young and beautiful. Some said she would bathe in the blood of virgin girls, believing it would keep her skin smooth and youthful. Others whispered that she drank the blood of these poor girls, savoring it like fine wine. But the most frightening rumor of all was about her torture chamber. It was said that deep within the castle, in a secret room, the Countess had a chamber filled with the most dreadful tools. Here she would take the young girls and subject them to unspeakable torment. The walls of the chamber echoed with the cries of the helpless victims, their voices lost in the darkness of the night. The Countess would then feed what remained of the girls to her vicious dogs, who roamed the castle grounds, their eyes glowing with a strange, eerie light. The Countess's cruelty knew no bounds, and the stories of her wicked deeds spread beyond the village. People began to avoid the castle, and the once grand fortress became a place of dread. But the Countess was not invincible. Eventually the rumors reached the ears of the king, and an investigation was ordered. Elizabeth Bathory was arrested in 1609. When the investigators arrived at the castle in 1609, they were horrified by what they found. The rooms were stained with blood, and the bodies of young girls were hidden throughout the castle. Some were buried in shallow graves, while others were left out for the dogs. The investigators also discovered a list of 610 women that the Countess had killed, a number so large that it seemed impossible. But the evidence was undeniable. During the trial, witnesses came forward with chilling accounts of what they had seen. One servant spoke of how the Countess had made her watch as she tortured a girl, delighting in the girl's pain. Another described the horrifying sight of the Countess bathing in a tub filled with blood, her pale skin glowing with a sickly light. As the trial continued, the villagers were gripped by fear and anger. How could someone so evil have lived among them for so long? The Countess was eventually found guilty of her crimes, but instead of being executed, she was locked away in a small room in her own castle. The door was bricked up, and she was left alone, with only a small slit for food and air. But even after her death a few years later, the terror did not end. The villagers claimed that on foggy nights the Countess's ghost could be seen wandering the castle grounds, searching for new victims. They said her bloodthirsty soul would never rest, doomed to haunt the castle forever. In the dark and mysterious land of Transylvania, there was a terrifying legend about a vampire named Nosferatu. The name Nosferatu, which comes from the Romanian word for vampire, struck fear into the hearts of those who lived near his castle. But Nosferatu wasn't just a name. His real identity was Count Orlok, a nobleman who haunted the villages around his eerie fortress for many years. Count Orlok was a man shrouded in mystery. He was never seen during the day, but at night villagers would whisper about strange sightings. They believed that when the sun went down, Count Orlok would transform into a terrifying creature with fangs as sharp as daggers. Anyone who got too close to the castle, whether they were villagers or unfortunate travelers, was never seen again. The fear of vanishing without a trace kept the villagers awake at night, trembling in their beds. The Count's servants, who only saw him during the day, spoke in hushed voices about his appearance. His skin was ghostly pale, almost as if he were already dead, and the dark circles under his eyes made him look even more sinister. The castle grounds were filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional howl of a wolf in the distance. But the most chilling thing of all was the discovery of dead animals scattered around the castle, each with 2 fang marks on their bodies. The animals were completely drained of blood, leaving no doubt that something unnatural was at work. Imagine being a villager, hearing the tales of Count Orlok, and seeing the evidence of his dark deeds. The fear would creep up your spine, making every shadow seem alive with danger. Every night, as the sun set, you would feel a knot of dread tightening in your stomach, knowing that the vampire could be out there, lurking in the darkness. When Count Orlok finally died, the villagers thought their nightmare was over. But the disappearances continued, and the villagers were once again gripped by fear. They couldn't understand why people were still going missing if the Count was dead. Some of the bravest villagers, unable to bear the terror any longer, went to the local priest for help. They begged him to open the Count's grave and make sure he was truly dead. The priest, though scared himself, agreed to help. Together with a small group of villagers, he made his way to the castle. The night was thick with fog, and every sound seemed magnified as they walked through the dark forest that surrounded the castle. When they finally reached the Count's grave, their hands trembled as they dug into the earth. The tension was unbearable, and every shovelful of dirt made their hearts race faster. When they uncovered the coffin, they hesitated, afraid of what they might find. But the priest, determined to end the horror, lifted the lid. Inside, they found Count Orlok's body, but it wasn't what they expected. Instead of a decaying corpse, the Count's body was perfectly preserved, as if he were merely sleeping. His nails had grown long and sharp, like claws, and his teeth were unmistakably those of a vampire. Worst of all, his lips were stained with fresh blood. Fear turned to panic, and the villagers knew they had to act quickly. With trembling hands, they drove a wooden stake through the Count's heart, the sound echoing through the night like a thunderclap. As the stake pierced his heart, the Count's eyes snapped open, and a terrifying scream filled the air. The villagers recoiled in horror, but they knew they had to finish the job. They quickly set the body on fire, watching as the flames consumed the Count and turned him to ash. As the fire crackled and the Count's body burned, the villagers felt a sense of relief for the first time in years. The nightmare was finally over, but the memory of Count Orlok and the terror he brought would never leave them. They would always remember the nights of fear, the dark shadows, and the vampire who haunted their dreams. In the dark forests of Wallachia, now part of Romania, there lived a ruler whose name became the stuff of nightmares. Vlad Tepes, known to many as Vlad the Impaler. He ruled in the mid-1400s, and his cruel methods of punishment earned him a fearsome reputation that would echo through history. Vlad's nickname, the Impaler, came from his preferred method of execution, impalement. This gruesome practice involved driving a wooden or metal pole through the body of his victims, starting from the most painful places and slowly piercing upward until it exited through the mouth, shoulders, or neck. It was a slow, agonizing death, and Vlad didn't just do it once. He impaled more than 20,000 people during his reign. Vlad's cruelty didn't stop there. He was known for torturing and dismembering his prisoners, showing no mercy to anyone who crossed him. But what made him truly terrifying were the stories that spread about his dark habits. It was said that Vlad would dine among the bodies of his impaled enemies, calmly dipping his bread into their blood as if it were a delicacy. Imagine the fear of living under such a ruler. Every day, you would hear whispers of what Vlad had done, the tales growing more horrifying with each retelling. The fear would grip you so tightly that even the thought of his name would make your blood run cold. Every night as you tried to sleep, you would imagine Vlad's pale face and cold eyes, knowing that he was out there, searching for more victims. But the legends didn't end with Vlad's cruelty. Over time, people began to believe that Vlad was more than just a man. He was a vampire. Stories spread that Vlad would drink the blood of his victims, and some even claimed to see him wandering the night, hunting for fresh prey. The people he attacked were said to be found with bite marks all over their bodies, and those who died were cursed to never find peace, their souls trapped in eternal torment. One such legend tells of a young villager named Anna, who constantly feared Vlad. Anna had heard the stories all her life, and each one filled her with dread. She knew that Vlad's castle was only a few miles away, and the thought of being caught by the impaler haunted her dreams. One night, as Anna walked home from visiting a friend, she felt a cold chill in the air. The forest around her seemed darker than usual, and every rustle of leaves made her heart race. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her, slow, deliberate footsteps that made her blood turn to ice. Anna quickened her pace, but the footsteps grew closer. Panic surged through her as she realized she was being followed. She could feel someone watching her, the gaze so intense that it made her skin crawl. Anna broke into a run, her heart pounding in her chest. But it was too late. A pale hand reached out from the darkness, grabbing her shoulder. She turned to face her attacker and was met with the cold, dead eyes of Vlad the Impaler. His face was as pale as the moon, and his teeth, sharp and gleaming, were bared in a cruel smile. The last thing Anna felt was the piercing pain of his fangs sinking into her neck. The world went dark, and when she awoke, she was in a small, cold room in Vlad's castle, her body weak and her neck throbbing. She could still feel the bite marks where Vlad had drained her blood. She knew that her fate was sealed, like so many others before her. She was doomed to a slow, agonizing death. But Anna's suffering didn't end there. Even after her death, her soul couldn't rest. The villagers found her body the next morning, lying lifeless at the edge of the forest. But there was something different about her. Her eyes were open, filled with a look of terror, and her mouth was twisted in a silent scream. The bite marks on her neck were fresh, and the blood had been drained from her body. The villagers knew what this meant. Anna had been claimed by Vlad the Impaler, the real Dracula, and her soul would never find peace. They buried her with a stake through her heart, hoping to break the curse, but the legend lived on. Vlad the Impaler's thirst for blood would never be quenched, and the fear he inspired would haunt the land forever. Hope you like these stories. Which one do you like the most? Tell us in the comments below. If you have interesting stories, send them in an email at the address listed in the video description. We'd love to hear them, and I'll make it into a video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.